Welcome back to part four and the final part of this thyroid series. I am going to just talk to you today. So, no slides, no screen to share, because one of the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you after, and I'll link it below, is my thyroid lab cheat sheet. And that is essentially going to go over everything that I'm covering in today's video, where we're diving deeper into testing and possible root causes for your thyroid related symptoms. Now, if you have made it this far in the series, I'm so glad you're here. And you hopefully now understand a little bit better about what your thyroid actually does and why it is so important, whether you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, or maybe you're just dealing with symptoms that you can't quite explain, or you're not really getting answers to around your digestion, your energy, your periods, your weight, your fertility, your moods, all of these things that essentially go back to the health of our thyroid and our metabolism. So, we've talked about why your thyroid is so important, what your symptoms are trying to tell you. We also talked about some of the most common mistakes, things that I recommend avoiding because it can actually make things worse. And a lot of women are doing these things with the best of intentions, but it's actually causing more disruption to our metabolic health and our thyroid function. And it's also kind of what can get us here in the first place, in addition to some of the other root cause drivers that I've discussed. And then in part three, we talked about how to nourish your body. I shared my nutrition blueprint for thyroid health and for hormones that we use with our clients. And there's a huge emphasis on minerals and on blood sugar, especially because those are super important when it comes to supporting your thyroid and your metabolism. And hopefully, you've also kind of come to realize that your thyroid isn't just about your thyroid. It is the canary in the coal mine. Whenever it's off, it's a sign that something deeper is going on. And it tells us more about how your body is functioning as a whole. It's not just about one lab number, and it's not just about TSH. And I'm going to talk more about that today. And again, I'm going to share the lab cheat sheet with you, and that will have everything that you need to know around the labs that we look at with our clients, and also how we look at labs that assess your body as a whole, not just your thyroid, because all of these other things are going to influence how your thyroid is functioning. So, in today's training, really what we're doing is answering the question, how do I actually figure out what is going on in my body? And we're really good at doing that with clients. I like to be a health detective, look at all your symptoms, look at your health history, look at how things are actually connected and what is contributing to those symptoms, because that tells us exactly where we need to focus. So we're not just guessing or throwing random supplements, or even worse, doing elimination diets that can dig us into a deeper hole, especially when it comes to healing our gut, healing our hormones, healing our metabolism. And it also, if you're somebody who likes to collect information, you listen to podcasts, you Google, you follow people on Instagram, it doesn't matter how much information you have, because if you're still guessing, then you're likely going to stay stuck. You're not going to have all of the puzzle pieces put together for the right puzzle. You're kind of trying to pull all of these different random puzzle pieces together, and they're not quite fitting. So, all of this to say, we're going to do a quick little recap of the first three parts, but you can go back and watch this, obviously, if you have not yet. I highly recommend doing that. In part one, we talked about what your thyroid actually does, how it impacts everything from energy to hormones to periods to fertility to metabolism to digestion to moods. We talked about in part two some of the biggest mistakes that women are following and making when they're trying to fix their thyroid symptoms, whether they know they're thyroid related or not: under eating, going low carb, over exercising, ignoring other important areas around their lifestyle habits. And then in part three, I gave you the exact nutrition blueprint that I use with clients to help them support their thyroid with food first, because you can do all the supplements. But if the food isn't dialed in, you're not balancing your blood sugar, you're not getting those minerals, then it's going to be really hard to get everything back into balance. And I work with a lot of clients who come to me saying things like, I've tried everything. And they're talking about supplements, protocols. They've even worked with other doctors, functional doctors, holistic practitioners. They've tried elimination diets and cutting foods out. They've eliminated gluten and dairy and sugar, and they're still feeling off. And they, yes, have tried a lot of things, but they're just not really actually doing the right things for them. I also oftentimes hear that my doctor has run labs and they said everything looks normal, but I still know something's off. Usually, I get those labs. We look at everything. They're not running enough of the right labs to look at your specific symptoms, and they aren't looking at optimal ranges. So maybe they're looking at TSH, but they're not looking at it within an optimal range. They're looking at it to see if it's as far out of range as possible to prescribe you with a medication or diagnose you with a disease. That's what doctors do. They prescribe medications, and they study medicine, and they can diagnose you with a disease, which is very important and has its time and place. But that's not for you if you're just feeling suboptimal and you know something's off and you want to look at kind of reading between the lines to figure out what patterns and trends and things are actually going on in my body that are causing me to feel this way. So that is where functional lab testing comes in, and why I use it in my practice with all of my clients, because it helps us to see what's really going on underneath the hood and pinpoint your individual root causes, not just treat the symptoms, which I even see this from like a functional, integrative, naturopathic standpoint, where clients will get their labs done and then they still get recommended a supplement for every single symptom that they're struggling with, which isn't that much better than the conventional model. So, what we really want to do is figure out the root cause and not just treat the symptoms. We want to treat the root. So, it's like watering the plant so that all of the leaves can thrive versus taking each individual leaf and trying to fix it by itself. And it also allows us, lastly, with these functional labs to customize a plan that supports your unique body. So there are foundations across the board that I recommend for supporting your hormones, but then we can tweak it and make sure that you're really focusing on the right things for your body, making sure that you have this customized approach. And just as like a little bit of a spoiler alert, hopefully you know this by now, but it's never just the thyroid. We don't just need to focus on the thyroid. That again is a symptom. Canary in the coal mine, it's kind of that check engine light that pops on whenever other things have been brewing and going on for quite a while. So that's where we actually want to test. We want to figure out what are those things that have been going on for a while. So the main labs that I use to get a full picture of what's happening with your thyroid, your hormones, your digestion, your metabolism are going to be blood labs. And we look beyond, again, just a basic thyroid panel. I'll share a little bit more about the different markers that we're looking for and kind of patterns and things we're paying attention to and why we get these lab markers. We also look at an HTMA test, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. We look at blood sugar and metabolic markers. We do this with blood labs, and in some cases with clients, we also use a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. And then lastly, we use a GI map stool test, especially if gut issues, skin issues, or autoimmune issues are present. You don't have to be dealing with obvious digestive issues to get a GI map stool test. It's actually the test that I recommend for clients who are dealing with cycle related symptoms too, because we want to actually look at how well your body is detoxing certain hormones. And so, all of this to say, the GI map stool test really is a foundational test. And we use it with a lot of our clients, especially if they've done a lot of the foundational work and they're working on the right things in the right order, but they're still stuck. Or, like I said, if they are coming to me already dealing with obvious skin issues, autoimmune conditions, maybe they have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's or Graves', or they have very obvious gut and digestive issues that we want to look at. So, those are the four main labs that I like to use to just get a full picture, again, of everything that is going on in the body. And we'll break each one of these down. But what I'm going to do is within the thyroid lab cheat sheet, you will actually see the chart of optimal ranges and then what it means. So I'm not going to list everything out. This is definitely something that you're going to reference because there are a lot of numbers in there. So you're going to go through and you can, if you have labs, you can compare it and see what might be missing for yourself. Or if you already have these labs, you can look at the optimal ranges and compare them to your individual numbers. So with the thyroid labs, Most conventional doctors only run TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. It's not actually your thyroid hormone. It's really measuring the communication between your brain and your thyroid gland. So it's just one piece of the puzzle. It doesn't tell us a lot of things that we need to know when it comes to your thyroid health. It doesn't tell us if you are producing enough thyroid hormone, which is going to be free T3. We have active free T3 and we have inactive free T4. And we want to be able to convert T4 to T3. So TSH also doesn't tell us anything about that conversion, which takes place in the liver and the gut. It also requires carbohydrates. So that's why we don't want to go low carb for thyroid health. But we need to know, are you converting or how well are you converting that inactive to active thyroid hormone? So we do measure free T4 and free T3 as part of that full thyroid panel. We also need to know if your cells are able to use thyroid hormones. So this is why we look at the HTMA test, because we're looking at thyroid health on a cellular level to see maybe you're producing enough of it, but it's unable to get into the cell, which can happen with specific mineral imbalances. And then we also want to look at thyroid antibodies. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with who have never gotten their thyroid antibodies tested because their TSH looks normal and they have elevated thyroid antibodies. And this can contribute to a lot of issues. And we want to look at it and address it as soon and as early as possible, not waiting for things to get so terrible or waiting for TSH to get so out of range that you then get tested for thyroid antibodies. So, whenever somebody says they got diagnosed with Hashimoto's at age 45, they've probably had Hashimoto's since they were in their 20s. They just never had their antibodies tested. So, a proper thyroid panel is going to include TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and TPO and TG antibodies. There's two different types. The reverse T3 is also helpful for looking at how much stress is playing a role in your thyroid being out of balance. So, I really like to get that marker as well. I'm going to go ahead and actually try to share my screen with you quickly. Let's see if I can grab this thyroid cheat sheet so that you can actually see what it looks like and you'll have a better idea of what I'm referencing whenever you actually download this. Okay, so we will scroll up here to, sorry, I'm just kind of winging this here. So basically, these are all of the different thyroid markers that you want to order. And we do this with our clients. So if you're just like, I want you to do all this for me, I'm ready to sign up. I'm ready to figure out if these are in optimal range. And then if they're not, what we can actually do about it and come up with a game plan. We can do that. But these are the ones that we want to order, and then also looking again at optimal ranges. So you can see TSH is going to be optimally between, I would say between 1 and 2, but 0.8 to 2.5 is just being a little bit more conservative. So you can see those and compare it to what you already have, or if you need this, we can do that for you. Okay, so next up, we are going to talk about, let's see, we will jump ahead. We're going to talk about the other lab markers that we like to get because it's not just about thyroid, it's about what influences your thyroid. And that includes blood sugar markers, fasting glucose, fasting insulin, A1C, which is typically measured at just a normal doctor's appointment. So that is good. Your lipid panel, your cholesterols, triglyceride. If you have high cholesterol, that usually is a symptom of hypothyroidism because your body isn't metabolizing it very well. And then not blood lab related, but something to give us more insight into blood sugar is going to be a continuous glucose monitor. And the reason these are important is because your thyroid loves low stress in the body and it loves to have a stable blood sugar. So remember that blood sugar lows will increase stress in the body, and that causes that release of cortisol. So, if you are skipping meals, if you're not eating enough, if you're dealing with a lot of those hypoglycemic episodes because your macronutrients aren't balanced out well, your cortisol is going to increase as a response to that low blood sugar. High cortisol leads to slower thyroid function. We talked about that in the previous parts of this series. I think it was in part 2. So go back and watch that if you haven't yet. So we want to balance blood sugar to keep our thyroid and our metabolism happy and also our total hormone production as well. It influences our progesterone levels, which will influence your cycles and your fertility and all of those other symptoms. So blood sugar balance is very, very important. And whenever we're looking at some of these markers, we want to make sure, again, that they're in optimal range. So as an example, fasting insulin ideally is no higher than 9, but it wouldn't be flagged in a conventional lab until it's over, I think the upper range is like 25 or something like that, which is much higher. And then that's when you're diagnosed with diabetes, and then they actually make a recommendation for you. So we want to make sure that it is in optimal range. You'll also see in this lab cheat sheet, so there's the fasting glucose and insulin there, but some other ones that we really like to look at with our clients, and this is the full panel that we order for everybody because it assesses total inflammation in the body and also other imbalances that, again, contribute to how well your thyroid's functioning. So we like to get a full iron panel and again, looking at optimal ranges. I see a lot of clients with thyroid issues have excess iron, and this can be from hormonal birth control or certain supplements, or it can be from gut issues as well. So we want to make sure that that's around 100. I'm tempted to read through all of these, but I'm not going to for time's sake. We want to look at vitamin D levels, vitamin A, which is needed for thyroid hormone sensitivity and conversion. So, not the amount of thyroid that you're producing necessarily, but how well you're using it. Most women are low in vitamin A. And then we look at B12 and folate. We look at magnesium, zinc, copper, and ceruloplasmin, which is bioavailable copper. Essentially, your body can use that form. But we also look at these in the HTMA test, which I'll talk about in just a second. So we look at blood labs and we look at your minerals in the tissue. So it's not just looking at it at that one snapshot in time in your blood labs. We want to look at it over time in your tissues. We also look at inflammation markers like CRP, homocysteine, which tells us more about your body's ability to methylate well. And then again, lipid panel, fasting glucose, insulin. So those are some of the blood labs that we like to look at as they relate to your thyroid function beyond just TSH and those other thyroid labs that I mentioned. Okay, so next up is the HTMA test, one of my favorite functional labs. It can tell us so much about your blood sugar, your thyroid function, your nervous system, your stress, and what stage of stress your body is actually in, fight or flight. It can tell us if you are more burnt out. It can tell us about your adrenal function. It can tell us about not exact cortisol levels, but it can tell us how resilient your body is or is not to stress. So, gives us a lot of insight into all of the foundational things that you need to essentially feel really, really good: energy, sleep, digestion, hormones, periods, fertility, all of those things. And your thyroid in particular runs on minerals. We need them. It's like the spark plug for every single cellular function in the body. So when they're depleted or if they're out of balance, we look at certain ratios. It's going to affect every single system in your body. Some of the reasons that I like the HTMA test, like I mentioned, it tells us all of these things about your metabolism, your thyroid, your nervous system, your blood sugar, adrenal function. It also tells us your metabolic type. So it can tell us if you are a slow or a fast oxidizer, which basically tells us how well your body is using food and also how quickly you are burning through minerals. We can see patterns that tell us about levels of stomach acid and therefore how well you're absorbing your nutrients, especially protein, which we need for thyroid health. It can tell us how well that you're detoxing, and it can also tell us more about heavy metals and different toxic loads that might be present in your body. In particular, when it comes to thyroid, we like to look at the ratio between potassium and calcium. So, low potassium and high calcium makes it really hard to get thyroid hormone into the cell, actually attaching to that receptor site to do its job. So, we always look at that potassium and calcium ratio. And when that is out of balance, that is going to drive a lot of those hypothyroid symptoms. We also look at copper and iron a lot when it comes to energy, hormones, especially cycle health and periods, mood stability. And of course, we look at copper as it relates to your thyroid function because it is one of the main minerals that we use for energy production. Magnesium, sodium, those are going to be really important for your adrenal health. And we know that adrenals and thyroid work closely together because of that stress, that cortisol thyroid relationship. So lots of really helpful things that we can see with HTMA. The last ones that I'll mention too, selenium and zinc. Those are really important minerals that we need for healthy thyroid function, especially more of a autoimmune thyroid picture because selenium and zinc are going to support your immune system. So this really is one of my favorite tools for understanding the big picture of what you're missing when it comes to getting the minerals from your food and also how much you might be burning through them with different stressors. And I find that especially for women who are doing a lot of the right things and they are already following the nutrition blueprint, they need to look at their minerals closely. Okay, so last but not least is the GI map stool test. And I love this test because the gut thyroid connection is huge and it's often overlooked, but we need to have good liver function and good gut function to not only detox hormones, especially estrogen, but we also need it to help with that thyroid conversion. So, if your gut is inflamed or it's out of balance with the ratio of good gut bacteria to bad gut bacteria, then it's going to impact your thyroid. And if you have gut infections or inflammation going on, that again is stress on the body. And that stress is going to influence your thyroid, your weight, inflammation overall in your body. It can show up in skin issues, cycle issues, aches and pains, all of the things you can think of related to inflammation. That stems from your gut. And then lastly, the reason your gut is so important is because this is where your immune system lives. This is where the majority of your immune system is. And so if you have autoimmune driven thyroid issues, and that is one of your root causes is autoimmunity with those elevated antibodies, you have to support your gut. And this is with any autoimmune condition, which I work with a lot of clients who have a variety of autoimmune related conditions. They have to support their immune system, obviously, but we have to support your gut to support your immune system. So, we're looking at that as one of the root cause foundational things that we need to support. The other reason that I like the GM-APP stool test is because it tells us a lot about if you have digestive issues, we can figure out exactly why with the GM-APP test. There's no like, oh, we don't know why this is happening, or oh, maybe it's this food, maybe it's that food. It's not a food issue, it's a system issue. It's something going on internally that's driving your reaction to these foods. So we like to look at certain infections. So H. pylori is a big one. We see this a lot in our clients with thyroid issues and also with skin issues as well, and also with autoimmune conditions. So that could be Hashimoto's in this case. We look at certain pathogens or parasites that are showing up and causing symptoms. We look at things like candida, which is a yeast or a fungal overgrowth, dysbiosis, so that imbalance of beneficial gut bacteria to opportunistic gut bacteria that we don't want to be overgrown. And we can also look to see if maybe you don't have enough of the good gut bacteria. So we can see a low diversity or just lower amounts of some of those really protective gut bacteria, which we need for our immune system. We can look at how inflamed your gut is or how basically permeable your gut is, which is also referred to as leaky gut. Whenever you have leaky gut, it's going to lead to autoimmune issues and it's going to lead to more food sensitivities as well. We look at how your gut army, as I like to call it, or your gut immune system is responding to foods. We can also look at gluten sensitivity. So maybe you don't have celiac, but you have a sensitivity to gluten that can show up with this gut test, with the GM-APP stool test. And this is really a helpful test for, again, anybody dealing with autoimmune thyroid issues, bloating, reflux, constipation, IBS, histamine issues, which we're seeing more and more often these days, especially post COVID, post virus exposure. Eczema and skin issues, we definitely want to look at your gut for that. And then again, like I said, food sensitivities. I do the GI-MAP test before doing food sensitivity tests, which basically just tells us that you need to support your gut. You don't want to eliminate all of those foods just because they're showing up on a food sensitivity. You want to heal your gut so that it's not reacting to those foods. And then honestly, one of my favorite parts about the GMAP stool test is it tells us how well you're breaking down the food that you're eating. So it tells us about how well you break down fats. And also it gives us better insight into how well you're producing the enzymes that break down protein and carbohydrates. So that is really helpful as well. And yeah, if we're not breaking down fats, obviously we need fats for hormones. Fats are the backbone for hormones, especially sex hormones. So if we're not breaking those down well, and you might have it in the form of symptoms, we won't go on a whole digestion tangent, but if your stools are floating, if you're really gassy, if you have a hard time digesting higher fat meals, then that's a sign that you're not breaking down fats well, and that's going to directly impact your hormones. So, GMAP stool test, very, very helpful. One of my favorite tests to use with clients who are struggling with, again, especially autoimmune related issues, skin issues, and gut issues. So, I want to quickly just touch on some of the different patterns that we see to give you a better idea of trends and things that we're looking at. All of these relate to why your thyroid could be off in the first place and where your symptoms are coming from. So, I kind of mentioned some of these throughout, but things like low free T, so that active thyroid hormone, when we have low free T3 and we have high reverse T3, then we know that stress is one of the root causes of your thyroid issues. If you have, moving on to minerals, low potassium and high calcium, that can mean that you are dealing with hypothyroid on a cellular level. So you might produce enough thyroid hormone, but you're not actually able to use it. If we are seeing low iron and low copper, this is going to slow everything down. So it's going to slow down your metabolism, and it's going to make it more difficult to break down the food you're eating and the food that you need for thyroid hormone production. So all of those nutrients and things like that. So that's another common pattern that we see. And that is going to show up as a lot of fatigue as well. And then with the gut, we see a lot of inflammation. We see parasites. We see H. pylori. We see gut dysbiosis, so low levels of that beneficial gut bacteria. And then some of those more opportunistic gut bacteria. We also oftentimes see low elastase, which is the enzyme that we need to break down your protein and certain carbohydrates. And then we also see poor fat digestion. Again, that's going to lead to a lot of hormone imbalances and skin issues as well. So, and then the last one we see is on the GI-MAP stool test, we can see high levels of a certain enzyme that helps to recycle or get rid of excess estrogen. So when that's elevated, that's also going to cause issues with estrogen detoxification. That can show up as a lot of water retention and heavy periods, painful periods. And it can also show up as more like endometriosis kind of picture where you might have cysts or you might have fibroids, or you might have actually been diagnosed with endometriosis. So that goes back to being able to detox hormones well, and we can see that with the GMAP stool test. So hopefully that helps to paint a better picture of, and I could get super nerdy with all these labs. This is something we can go over together, and I can break it down for you exactly based on what your labs are showing and how it actually connects to your symptoms. But none of these, we're not figuring this out from just TSH alone. So if you've gone to your doctor and they've only tested TSH, this is your sign to dig deeper and actually look at how everything in your body is influencing one another and connected as a whole. So your blood sugar, your ability to break down your food well, your minerals on a cellular level, certain blood labs that can tell us more about inflammation in the body. There's so much more to the picture than just looking at TSH and just looking at the thyroid by itself. And again, this lab cheat sheet is something that I will share with you. If you want to grab it below, I'll link it up, or you can just DM me on Instagram. Just send me thyroid lab cheat sheet and I will send you the link to download it. Okay, so let me stop my screen share and kind of wrap things up here, because really the point that I want to drive home with this again is if you've watched all three parts of the series, you've collected the information, and you're either wondering, is my thyroid, my metabolism, has it slowed down? Is it playing a role in my symptoms? Or you've been told that you are hypothyroid, or you know that you have this thyroid diagnosis, you know your labs aren't normal, but you don't have anything tangible to do about it that's actually helping you feel better, aside from the Band-Aid recommendation of take this medication or cut out gluten. So if you've been trying to, whichever camp you fall into, you're trying to piece all of these things together for yourself, and you're feeling like it's taking you a lot of time and effort, and you're wasting money on different supplements and elimination diets and all these things, then this is your sign to stop guessing and actually get the lab data and the support and somebody who can look at your body as a whole, see the big picture, and put together a plan for you. This is exactly what we do with our clients. And we use testing and we use personalized nutrition to help you with that roadmap that is working for you based on your root causes and also fits into your lifestyle. If you want to restore your energy and improve chronic fatigue, you want to improve your sleep, maybe you have cycle related symptoms and you want to support healthy cycles, you want to get pregnant, you want to support your fertility, you want to get rid of the PMS and the mood swings that have you feeling like a completely different person leading up to your period. If you want to improve your digestion, you want to reduce the bloating, the chronic constipation, you want to be able to eat out and travel without stressing about if this food will cause issues for you. You don't want to live on an elimination diet, and you shouldn't have to do that if you're healing your gut. You want to get your metabolism working again. Maybe you have body composition goals. You want to get stronger in the gym. You want to recover well from your workouts, and you want to actually look and feel really, really good in your clothes. And then also, if you just want to understand what your body needs to thrive, we're not taught this. We're taught diets, but we're not taught how to actually support our female physiology and truly nourish our body long term, day in and day out for the rest of our lives. That is the goal, not a quick fix or temporary thing that you can't really stick to because it doesn't fit into your life that well. You want to understand what your body actually needs to thrive. So, if that is something that you are ready to go deeper into and you want to get real answers about your symptoms, you want to have a plan that's customized to you, then you can use the link below. There's an application there that you can fill out. We can get on a call, we can chat more. Or if you just want to DM me and have a conversation on Instagram, I'm happy to talk that way as well. Just DM me the word ready and we can figure out more about what's going on with you and if working together is a good fit. And I can also share more details about exactly what that process looks like. So hopefully now you have a complete picture of all the things that impact your thyroid from part 1, part 2, and part 3. We covered a lot. So if you haven't watched those yet, definitely go back and do that. Make sure you grab the Thyroid Lab cheat sheet. And then also, I shared a thyroid and metabolism biofeedback tracker that is going to help you keep better tabs on all of your symptoms as they relate to your thyroid. So if you haven't grabbed that yet, definitely do it. I'm going to quickly, I want to share my screen for that. Let's see if I can find it. Because I think that if you haven't seen what this looks like yet, you're going to be like, oh, I need this. So it is meant to be something that you can kind of track on your own. And again, sort of like be your own health detective, because I think whenever we understand what our symptoms mean and what they're actually connected to, we can be in the driver's seat of our health. And there's so much within our control that we can do to actually help it. So within this, you'll see, again, kind of like quick recap, Thyroid 101, common hypothyroid symptoms, and then you will do your baseline check-in first. And this kind of gives you a snapshot of rating everything, rarely, sometimes often, so that you know which symptoms are top priorities for you to fix and improve on. Basal body temperature, we talk about the importance of using that and how it can tell you a lot about your metabolism and what you want to look for there. So tracking that accordingly. And then you have your daily biofeedback tracker, which helps you to get in tune with all of these different signs and symptoms that help us to really gauge and kind of evaluate our health status and those different biofeedback markers that can tell us where we need to work on improving. And if you complete this and you want to bring it to if you apply to work together and you want to talk more about any of these things that are popping up for you, I'm happy to do that because I definitely want to make sure that one, you get the most out of the series, and two, you have somebody to actually help you apply all the things that you're learning. So I will wrap things up here. I hope this was helpful for you. And also, if you know somebody else who would benefit from this, if you really enjoyed it and you have a friend or family member or somebody you can think of who might need to hear this information, please share it with them. And hopefully I will hear from you soon. If you want to reach out to me in the DMs, if you have any questions, happy to chat more. And I will talk to you later. Bye.